Hello again, my lovelies. Pirate Scum Gaming here. And today I would like to talk to you about my tank build on the World Razer. This great ship was donated to me so generously by my fleet member and also a good friend of my stream, Firestrider. You, sir, are a legend. Thank you so much. I have been trying to get this ship since it launched with no success, and you made this video possible. Again, thank you, good sir. This is a very solid tank, very beautifully designed ship if you ask me, and it certainly holds its own in a firefight, as you will see in the upcoming Argala patrol that I did. So let's go ahead and jump right into this build. Alright, as you can see, I have departed from my usual tank build because I wanted to experiment with something. I wanted to see if a new setup that I had thought about would work, and guess who won the pony? It worked out beautifully. So let's go ahead and jump right into the overall build. First up, I have the Phaser wide-angle dual heavy beam bank. This is from the Discovery reputation. This is part of the War Discussion 2-piece along with the Locator console, but we'll talk more about that when we get down to the console. Next up, I have 3 beam arrays, pulse phasers. These particular beam arrays are good because they strip damage resistance from the enemy and give it to you. And I just like the way they look. Ever since I saw, Star Trek Wrath of Khan, and when the Undiscovered Country lockbox came out, I had to get these because these, I think, are some of the best phasers in the game. Spencer had tested several different types of phasers, and these came out number 2, I believe. So that's why I use them. They are extremely good. And next is the Prolonged Engagement Photon Torpedo. Now, usually I would be slotting the Dark Matter Quantum, but I decided to run an experiment. I wanted to see just how well these would perform on a tank. And honestly, I was not disappointed. These performed quite well. We'll talk about the 2-piece here when I get down to the beam. Pretty standard space core for tanks. The non-baryonic matter deflector from the Discovery reputation. Prevailing innervated impulse engine from competitive rep. A mycelial harmonic antimatter warp core, also from the Discovery reputation, and Tilly's review pending modified shields. Let's go take a look at this Space Core bonus set. Okay, set 2, nothing is lost forever. Plus 120% hull regen. That's kind of important for a tank, since a tank's job is to grab aggro and take punishment. So this does help in that regard. And the 3 set is Mycelial Lightning. Your first weapon attack against each target fires a bolt of mycelial energy at them, dealing about 5,800 electrical damage. And it also scales with your maximum hull hit points. And my hull hit points do get fairly high once the run starts. And also, this Mycelial Lightning is great at grabbing aggro. It pisses everything off, and that's what you want to do as a tank. You want to piss off everything and have it attack you. Also to note with the shield, you can see your weapon attacks cause enemy shields to receive 11.5% increased damage for 10 seconds. Now, as a tank, not only are you there to be sort of an aggro sponge, if you want to use that phrase, you're also there to debuff the enemy. And this is an excellent way to debuff the enemy. Okay, aft weapons, we have the Prolonged Engagement Phaser Beam. This is from the Prolonged Engagement set. This came out as part of the Kobayashi Maru event back in 2018, and is currently available to you in the Phoenix pack. Let's go ahead and take a look at the two-piece before I go on talking about this particular weapon. Okay, endurance training, 7.5% recharge time on all bridge officer abilities. As a tank, you kind of want your bridge officer abilities to come up as quickly as possible so that you'll be able to use them. This helps in that regard. Now, the weapon itself is actually fairly good. Here we go. Every 5 stacks of amplified relays, gain 20% firing cycle haste for this weapon for 8 seconds. Your first weapon attack against each target fires a bolt, and that's from the... this last bit is from the Space Corps set. And also minus 30 all damage resistance rating for 5 seconds. So this is a fairly good beam array for a tank, and it did perform quite well. I was very happy with it. I forgot to talk about the torpedo to show you a little bit about that. Let me go back to that. Okay, for the torpedo, applies 1 stack of overclocked loaders. Stacks give this weapon 1% firing cycle haste with a max of 15 stacks. So that's 15% firing cycle haste. So this torpedo fires off pretty rapid fire once you get your max stacks. So yeah, this torpedo actually performed very well in the patrol that I did. Okay, devices, we have connect... Oh, that shouldn't be there. There we go, energy amplifier. Gotta love it when loadouts work, right? 20% bonus energy weapon damage. I've talked about this a billion times. Same thing about deuterium surplus. This is evasive in a can, or as I like to call it, go-go juice. Quick and dirty about how to get this. Go into your mission journal, look up Spectre's Arc, run the first mission there. Afterwards, run south of Drozana. There is a patroller in the Alhena system. Fend off some marauding Cardassians, quick and easy, about 5 minutes. And then you'll be able to make these ad infinitum in your engineering R&D. Kobayashi Maru transponder. This is also obviously a Kobayashi Maru event. This adds random buffs. Reactive armor catalyst. This comes from the mission Broken Circle. Once you run that mission, you will be able to make these ad infinitum in your engineering R&D. These are great emergency healing buttons. We're allowed to call them the old crap buttons. And I do recommend running these. Also, it's good if you're doing something like Borg Disconnected and you're currently being debuffed by the Borg Plasma Fire. Once you activate this, you will gain temporary hit points, and you will be able to then stop the disconnected Borg from reconnecting. So that's a nice little added bonus to this. Next is the Lorcator console, Lorca's custom fire controls. This is also from the Discovery Reputation, part of the War Discretion 2-piece. There we go. On crit, plus 1% crit severity buff for 20 seconds, and it stacks up to 25 times, so that's 25% bonus crit severity. Because I like my tanks to do a little bit of damage too, not just sit there and take abuse. Next up is Domino from the Bajoran Interceptor. 25% firing cycle haste for energy weapons, 25% bonus all damage, 25% recharge speed for bridge officer abilities, and 100% recharge speed for torpedo weapons. This really plays well with the prolonged engagement torpedo. Next is experimental power redirection. This comes off of the Excelsior 2. Its passives are good. 19.9% increased energy damage and 13.3 Starship weapon amplification. But we're actually using it for the active. The overwhelming area beam attack, known as Thaw Overload. 60% energy weapon damage. Swaps randomly between Beam Overload 3 and Fire at Will 3. So yeah, that's really cool when it goes off. And with all that extra text going out, you are attacking the enemy and causing them to want to attack you. So this really works well with the tank. Next up is the Bio-Neural Fusion Circuits. This is one of the oldest consoles in the Lobby store. You get a nice chunk of Starship hull capacity, some control expertise, because I am running some controls, and a good solid chunk of crit severity. Next up, the Immolating Phaser Lance. This is the big red beam of death. This comes off of the Deimos Pilot Escort. And in my opinion, this works well on a tank because if you're doing damage to the enemy, you're pissing them off and they're going to want to come and attack you. So yeah, that plays well. And this also works well with universal designs. Tachyon Net Drones. This comes off the Bozeman. This is a good area debuff. It put out what we call the D20 of Doom on the target and has a chance to knock their shields offline, debuffing the target, making it easier to kill. Ion Storm Generator. This comes from the Baran. 5% max hull capacity and plus 15% shield hit points. Shields really don't mean much in the game at the moment. The passives are not what we're using for. We're using it for the active. The 3 random targets per second. You get electrical damage. It puts out a giant electrical storm around you. And if threatening stance is enabled, which is a tank, it should be, 500% threat gen while storm lasts. This is a good way to get the enemy's attention in a quick hurry. That is why we are using it. Tactical consoles, pretty standard. I have a couple here from the Fleet Spire and 3 from the Colony. These ones from the Colony have a chance to heal you. That's why we use it, because these are an excellent source of healing as a tank. Let's go ahead and look at skills. Skill tree has not changed, the same skill tree I have been running. This is the one Augie was using, and it has not failed me yet. So if you feel the need to take a screenshot of this, pause the video, do so now. I don't mind. Okay, for specializations, we are running Miracle Worker Primary and Strategist Secondary. These are the 2 preferred tanking specializations. Alright, let's discuss some traits. First up, I have a Good Day to Die. This turns my Go Down Fighting into your reusable buff. Intelligent Agent Attaché on Weapon Critical Strike. Restore 2% of Captain Ability Recharge. The Boimler Effect. This is my primary means of cooldown. I am running some Liberated Borg Duty Officers because Boimler here likes to slack off and not do his job sometimes. So it's always good to have a backup. Superior Beam Training. Makes sense. Terran Targeting. Crit Severity. Unconventional Systems. Free DPS. This helps. Using a Control Bridge Officer ability gives you minus 7% recharge time on Universal Consoles. And I do have some user consoles that I'm using. So this does help. Repair Crews. While in combat, gain 1 stack of Repair Crews every 5 seconds, up to 5 max. Per stack, plus 5 all damage resistance rating, and plus 5% hull repair rate. Imposing Presence. Plus threat and outgoing hull healing. Plus 7.5% outgoing hull healing, and plus 25 threat gen. Fragment of AI Tech. Plus 20% energy weapon damage based on control expertise. And last but not least, we have Menacing. Doubles threatening stance chance to gain stacks. Doubles threatening chance max stacks. Gained per second, increased threat reduction by additional 50% when threatening stance is not active. As a tank, you want to turn on threatening stance in the beginning and not turn it off until you're done. Starship traits. we have History Will Remember. This comes off of the Narendra or the Viral Support Cruiser. Plus 1% all damage, plus 1% hull regen. Increase max hull by 1%. For each foe that damages you, gain 1 stack of History Will Remember, 30 stacks max. So that's a lot of extra. That's 30% all damage, 30% hull regen, and 30% increase to maximum hull. And also 10% chance threat gen while only threatening stance is active. So you also get plus 30% threat gen. Next, emergency weapon cycle. This comes off the Kurak, the Morgu, or the Arbiter. On use of emergency powered weapons, minus 50% weapon power cost, and 20% firing cycle haste. And get those beams a moving. Honored Dead. This comes from the Sarcophagus. But for Federation players, before the cross-faction flying, you were able to get this in a box on the exchange. I believe there's still a few out there, but they're rather pricey. This is there for survivability. After receiving 10,000 cumulative damage, which you'll receive that quickly as a tank, you gain a stack of Honored Dead, which adds 10% all damage resistance rating and plus 1% health regen, max of 20 stacks. Yeah, this is a really, really solid trait for a tank. Next, Calculated Broadside. This is from the Excelsior 2. Upon activating a Fire at Will or Intelligence Bridge Officer ability, for 15 seconds, plus 35% beam weapon damage, and plus 30 damage resistance rating. Along the side arc, doubled if threatening stance. If not in threatening stance, minus 60% threat gen. So this works either way, whether you're tanking or not. But since this is a tank, that 30% damage resistance rating is well worth using this. Next is Redirecting Arrays. This comes from the Tactical Miracle Worker Cruiser. Once per second, the beam fire at will is active. Receiving any damage grants plus 3/3-second duration to fire at will. This is your fire at will extension trait. And last but not least, we have Superior Area Denial. Even though I am not using pets, this is still good because when activating Fire at Will or Scatter Volley, 2 targets hit, although it does not stack, minus 30 all damage resistance rating. So you're debuffing them when you're using Fire at Will. Next, for Space Reputation, I am using Automated Protomatter Conduits from the Lucari rep. When critically hit, gain some shield regeneration as well as a good chunk of hull regeneration. Although this only triggers every 30 seconds, it's still worth using. Next is Advanced Targeting Systems. Not much to talk about there. That comes from the Dyson rep. From the Temporal rep, Controlled Countermeasures, plus 9.4% bonus energy weapon damage and projectile weapon damage against controlled targets. If you are in a team with a controller, that's where this trait shines. Tyler's Duality, plus 5.8% crit chance based on hull capacity. I'm going to come back to that because it's something I need to show you. And lastly, Precision from the new Romulus rep. That's Discovery rep, by the way. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at bridge officers and stations. Okay, first up, we have Chemosite. Because, who does not love radiation explosions? I personally love radiation explosions. Torpedo Spread 2 to get around that prolonged torpedo. And Fire at Will 3, the main event. Next up, in the Science Officer station here, we have Tractor Beam and Scramble Sensors. Both of these are unconventional system procs. This tactical seat, which is also a temporal seat, I'm using Heisenberg Amplifier, Chronometric Inversion Field, and Timeline Collapse, all of which are unconventional system procs. And last but not least, Attack Pattern Delta 3 for the additional threat. Because I have a duty officer that helps with the threat this causes. And the reason I'm not using Beta 3 on this particular ship is because the ship does not have cruiser commands, so therefore it does not have attract fire. So I have to compensate for that by other means to get my threat gen up. Engineering seat, emergency power to engines to move this ship around, emergency power to weapons to proc emergency weapon cycle, and suppression barrage to debuff the enemy. And last but not least, we have very cold in space, which is a good debuff. Let's go ahead and look at my duty officers now. Okay, first up we have 23 of 47. On use of tactical abilities, 15% chance, improve team-wide max hull by 10%. And on use of command, chance to improve crit chance. 24 of 47 here. On use of tactical abilities, 15% chance, set power levels to maximum for 5 seconds. That's why we are using this particular DOFF for this particular ability. Now this would be doing double duty if this was a miracle worker ship. However, it is not a miracle worker ship, so this last part doesn't count. Emergency con hologram. This is available to you in the Phoenix store. Activating emergency power to engines causes recharge on evasive maneuvers to be drastically reduced. So once you hit evasive maneuvers, hit your emergency power to engines to get your evasive maneuvers back up again. This is excellent for getting around, easy speed for getting around the map. Next here is a Dakukan. This is the DOFF that turns attack pattern delta into threat gen. Increases threat generation for the target of your attack pattern delta bridge officer ability. The bonus from multiple copies of this officer is capable of stacking to generate even more extra threat. I only needed one copy of this because I have other means to create threat gen, so one copy of this was more than enough. To target plus 100% threat gen for 1.3 seconds for 15 seconds. Okay, we got 38 of 47 here and 41 of 47. These are my Boimler backups. On use of tactical abilities, 15% chance to reduce command bridge officer ability cooldowns by 50%, and vice versa for tactical bridge officer abilities. And 41 of 47, same thing except for temporal abilities. Alright, let's talk more about Tyler's Duality. Remember I said that it increases your crit chance based on your hull percentage? Well, I'm using this. The prototype Ablative Jevonite. This buffs up my hull capacity, therefore increasing the effectiveness of Tyler's Duality. So let's take a look at that. Remember, before I clicked this, it was 5.8%. And see, it bumped up to 6.5%. So that is a good way to get more crit chance just on using something you can buy on the exchange. And they're not that expensive. You can get a stack of 50 for about 5 million. That's not bad. So if you're running a tank, I highly recommend you getting that. It is well worth the purchase. Okay, with that being said, let's go back to Starship trades. Check something. Remember I said I talked about Universal Designs. Now I am not running Universal Designs here, but if you want to run Universal Designs, if it works for you, be my guest. For me, I prefer to slot this for the added debuff. Alright, let's do a quick visual tour of the ship. Now, I did do a little space Barbie with this because I didn't like the way the World Razer's secondary hull looked. So I doctored it up to my own personal tastes, which is nice because this does offer a lot of space Barbie capability. So I'm using the Galaxy Refit nacelles and the Cygnus secondary hull because I think it looks cool. Alright, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to that patrol so you can see this fun, awesome ship in action. After that, I'll have some final thoughts. So, see you on the flip side. Welcome back from that patrol. Another great patrol. This ship really took damage. It not only angered the enemy, it took whatever the enemy could handle and brushed it off. Just like a good tank should do. This is a really solid ship. It is probably the second favorite Galaxy class ship that I own. My first favorite, and always will be my favorite, is my Cygnus. This is a very close second. I am really getting to like this ship. It is a solid performer. It is beautifully designed. It does what it's set out to do, it handles it with ease, and it's just fun. So would I recommend this as a tank? Yes, I would. I mean, granted, you do want to have a ship with cruiser commands for the additional attract fire, but, you know, this ship works. It gets the job done. It has the good amount of seating. You can able to use it has command seating, so you have suppression barrage. That's a plus. It has the temporal abilities. They're pretty powerful. And this ship just, it has a nice hull modifier. This ship is just a very solid ship. And I, you know, a good friend of mine, Stu, did a video on what you can do with it. You can, as you saw today, you can DPS with this with ease. And you just saw you can tank with this with ease. You can do just about everything you want with this. I would highly, if you do have one, or you're able to get one, I highly recommend it. It is a really solid ship. And I'm going to be flying this a lot more often. I'm going to be probably putting a DPS build on this. Or probably a FAW build. Not so much beam overload, I'm getting kind of bored with that. So, I may be doing a future video on a FAW build for this, so be looking for that. So that's about it. I like this ship. I'm glad I was able to get one of my hands on this. And I highly recommend it. So, well, with that being said, as always, don't go by the book, think like a pirate, and I'll catch you next time.
Human! Play, damn jat, human!